The Nevada highway stretched endlessly under the unforgiving August sun, heat waves rippling off the asphalt like liquid glass. Marcus Cole had been riding for 6 hours straight, his Harley-Davidson Road King cutting through the desert silence with the steady rumble that had become the soundtrack of his life. At 53 years old, with 28 years of military service behind him and a chest full of medals he never displayed, Marcus had learned that the road offered something no therapist ever could: perspective. His leather vest bore the insignia of the Iron Guardians Motorcycle Club, a brotherhood of veterans who had traded their uniforms for chrome and leather, but never their code of honor. The patches on his vest told stories that words could not capture. 2 tours in the Gulf, peacekeeping missions that had cost him friends, and a Purple Heart earned in circumstances he still saw in his dreams. But today, none of that mattered. Today was simply about the wind, the engine, and the endless ribbon of Highway 93 leading him back to Henderson after a week-long charity ride through Arizona. The temperature gauge on his bike read 112 degrees. Smart riders knew better than to push through weather like this. But Marcus had water, experience, and the kind of stubborn determination that had kept him alive in situations far more dangerous than a desert highway. Besides, his daughter Emma was waiting for him back home, probably already preparing his favorite meal and ready to hear stories from the road. He was thinking about Emma's smile when he first spotted it. A gleaming white Mercedes-Benz S-Class pulled over on the shoulder, hazard lights blinking weakly against the blazing sun. The car looked absurdly out of place against the rugged desert landscape, like a diamond ring dropped in the sand. Steam was rising from beneath the hood, and Marcus could see a figure standing beside the vehicle, phone pressed to their ear with what appeared to be increasing frustration. Marcus had a rule, one that every member of the Iron Guardians lived by. You never pass someone stranded on the road. It did not matter if they were driving a luxury sedan or a rusted pickup truck. It did not matter if they looked at you with fear or gratitude. When someone needed help, you stopped. Period. The desert was unforgiving, and cell phone coverage out here was as reliable as a politician's promise. He eased his Harley off the highway and rolled to a stop about 30 feet from the Mercedes. The figure by the car turned, and Marcus saw her clearly for the first time, a woman in her early 60s, dressed in clothes that probably cost more than his motorcycle. Her silver hair was perfectly styled despite the heat, and even from this distance, he could see the glint of jewelry at her wrists and ears. She lowered her phone and regarded him with an expression he had seen countless times before. The particular mixture of relief and apprehension that people showed when a man in leather and tattoos approached them in a vulnerable situation. Marcus removed his helmet slowly, deliberately, giving her time to see his face. He had a weathered complexion, gray stubble, and eyes that his daughter called ancient in the kindest possible way. He made no sudden movements as he dismounted, keeping his hands visible. 28 years of service had taught him how to read body language, and he could see the tension in her shoulders, the way she gripped her phone like a weapon. "Afternoon," he called out, his voice carrying easily across the hot air. "Looks like you might be having some trouble. I was just passing through and thought I would see if you needed any help." The woman hesitated. Marcus could practically see the calculations running through her mind, weighing the danger of accepting help from a stranger against the danger of being stranded in the desert. He understood. The world had taught her to be afraid, and he could not blame her for the lessons she had learned. "My car overheated," she finally said, her voice cultured and controlled despite the circumstances. "I have been trying to reach a tow service, but I cannot get any signal out here." She held up her phone as evidence. Marcus nodded, pulling out his own phone. "Same here. We are in a dead zone for about 40 miles in either direction. Mind if I take a look under the hood? I spent some time as a mechanic in the service. Might be something simple." Again, that hesitation. But the heat was relentless, and Marcus could see perspiration beginning to form on her forehead, despite her obvious efforts to maintain composure. Finally, she nodded. He walked to the Mercedes, staying in her line of sight at all times, and popped the hood. The engine was a masterpiece of German engineering, but even masterpieces could fail. He studied the components with practiced eyes, noting the temperature of various parts, checking fluid levels, looking for obvious damage. "Your coolant reservoir is cracked," he said after a moment. "Probably happened when the engine overheated. The good news is you did the right thing by pulling over when you did. If you had kept driving, you would have done serious damage to the engine block. As it is, you just need a new reservoir and some coolant." The woman moved closer, peering at the engine as if she could understand what she was seeing. "Can you fix it?" "Not out here, but I can get you somewhere safe. There's a service station about 20 miles back. Old friend of mine runs it. He can get you sorted out, probably have you back on the road by tomorrow morning." "Tomorrow morning?" Her voice carried a note of alarm. "I have to be in Las Vegas tonight. I have a commitment that cannot wait." Marcus straightened up and met her eyes. "With respect, ma'am, you are not going anywhere in this car today. And if you try to call a tow truck from out here, you will be waiting until dark, and the desert gets dangerous at night. Snakes, coyotes, and worse. Your best bet is to come with me to Dusty's place. He's got a phone that works, air conditioning, and a spare room if you need it." The woman's expression shifted through several emotions: frustration, fear, resignation, and finally something that looked almost like dark humor. "Come with you," she repeated, "on your motorcycle, unless you would rather walk. 20 miles in this heat dressed like that? I would not recommend it." For a long moment, she simply stared at him. Marcus waited patiently. He had learned long ago that you could not rush people into trusting you. Trust had to be earned, one moment at a time, and all he could do was stand there and let her see who he was. "I do not even know your name," she said finally. "Marcus Cole. Iron Guardians MC out of Henderson. I have been riding these roads for 30 years. You can ask anyone at Dusty's about me, and they will vouch for my character." She seemed to weigh this information. "Iron Guardians. Are you one of those biker gangs?" Marcus allowed himself a small smile. "We are a club, not a gang. Veterans, mostly. We ride, we raise money for charity, and we look out for each other and our community. The most dangerous thing we do is eat too much barbecue at our annual cookout." Something shifted in her expression, a fraction of the tension leaving her shoulders. "I see," she said. "And you help strangers stranded on the highway?" "When we can." "The road is a brotherhood, ma'am. Does not matter what you drive or where you are going. When someone needs help, you help them." The woman was silent for another long moment. Then she reached into her car and pulled out a small purse. "All right, Mr. Cole. I suppose I do not have much choice." She said it with a kind of wry acceptance that Marcus respected. "How do I—" She gestured uncertainly at the motorcycle. Marcus walked her through the basics: where to put her feet, how to hold on, how to lean with the bike rather than against it. He gave her his spare helmet, a plain black one he kept for passengers, and made sure it was properly secured. When she climbed onto the back of the Harley, he could feel her rigid with tension, every muscle locked against the unfamiliarity of the situation. "Just relax," he told her. "I have been doing this longer than some people have been alive. You are safe with me." They pulled away from the stranded Mercedes, leaving it blinking helplessly on the roadside. Marcus kept his speed moderate, aware of his passengers' inexperience and the heat that made the road surface treacherous. Behind him, the woman gradually loosened her death grip on his jacket, her body slowly adapting to the rhythm of the ride. The 20 miles passed in relative silence, broken only by the engine's steady rumble and the whistle of wind. By the time Dusty's service station appeared on the horizon, a low building with weathered pumps and a hand-painted sign, the sun had begun its descent toward the western mountains, painting the desert in shades of orange and gold. Dusty himself came out to greet them, a barrel-chested man in his 60s with skin like leather and a smile that showed more gaps than teeth. "Marcus, you old road warrior. What trouble you bringing me today? Got a lady here with a cracked coolant reservoir about 20 miles east. White Mercedes S-Class. She needs a place to wait while we figure out how to get her car fixed." Dusty's eyes went to the woman as she carefully dismounted from the motorcycle. She removed the helmet and shook out her silver hair, somehow managing to look dignified despite her disheveled state. His expression shifted almost imperceptibly, something flickering in his eyes that Marcus could not quite read. "Ma'am," Dusty said, and there was an unusual note of deference in his voice. "Welcome to my humble establishment. Let me get you inside where it is cool. We will take care of everything." The woman nodded graciously. "Thank you. I appreciate your hospitality." Marcus watched the exchange with curiosity. Dusty was a friendly man, but this felt different, more formal, like he was addressing someone important. But he pushed the thought aside as Dusty ushered them into the station's small office, where a window air conditioning unit labored valiantly against the heat. The next few hours unfolded with a kind of easy efficiency. Dusty made calls on his landline, arranging for his nephew to drive out with a tow truck and retrieve the Mercedes. The woman, who introduced herself simply as Eleanor, accepted a cold bottle of water and sat in the station's most comfortable chair, which Dusty had produced from somewhere in the back. Marcus learned a few things about her through careful observation and occasional conversation. She was traveling from Phoenix to Las Vegas. She had business there that she described only as important without elaboration. She was widowed, had been for several years, and she was watching him with an intensity that made him slightly uncomfortable, though he could not have said why. Around 6 o'clock, Dusty's nephew arrived with the Mercedes in tow. The diagnosis was confirmed: cracked coolant reservoir, but no other damage. The part would need to be ordered, and even with rush shipping, it would not arrive until the next afternoon at the earliest. Eleanor received this news with remarkable composure. "Very well," she said. "Is there a hotel nearby where I might stay?" Dusty shifted uncomfortably. "Nearest hotel is about 60 miles from here, ma'am, but I have got a clean room upstairs that I keep for emergencies. You are welcome to it." She considered this offer, then nodded. "That would be acceptable. Thank you." Marcus stood, stretching muscles that had stiffened during the long wait. "I should get back on the road. My daughter is expecting me." Eleanor turned to him, and again he saw that studying look in her eyes. "Mr. Cole," she said. "Marcus, I want to thank you for stopping today. You did not have to help me, and I know—" She paused, seeming to choose her words carefully. "I know I was not particularly gracious when you first approached. I apologize for that." "No apology necessary, ma'am. You were smart to be cautious. World is not always kind to people who trust too easily." "No," she agreed softly. "It is not. But sometimes it gives us people like you." She reached into her purse and pulled out her wallet. "Please let me pay you for your time and trouble." Marcus held up his hand. "That is not necessary. I insist." She pulled out several bills, and Marcus could see they were hundreds, for the gas at least. "And your expertise." "Ma'am, with respect, I did not stop to help you because I wanted money. I stopped because it was the right thing to do. The Iron Guardians do not take payment for helping people. It is part of our code." Eleanor stared at him for a long moment, the bills still in her hand. Then slowly, she put them back in her wallet. "You are a remarkable man, Marcus Cole." He shrugged. "I am just a man who tries to do right by people. Nothing remarkable about that." "You would be surprised," she said, and there was something in her voice that sounded almost sad. "You would be very surprised." Marcus said his goodbyes to Dusty, shook Eleanor's hand, and walked out into the cooling desert evening. The sun had set, leaving the sky awash in purple and pink, and the temperature had dropped to something almost pleasant. He mounted his Harley, pulled on his helmet, and gave a final wave before pulling back onto the highway. As he rode, he thought about Eleanor. There was something about her that nagged at him, something familiar that he could not quite place. The way she carried herself, the quality of her clothes, the deference Dusty had shown her. But the thought faded as the miles passed, replaced by anticipation of seeing Emma and sleeping in his own bed. He would learn soon enough how wrong he was to dismiss those instincts. He would learn that the woman he had helped on a dusty Nevada highway was far more than she appeared to be. And he would learn that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness could change the course of a life in ways no one could predict. But that night, He was just a man on a motorcycle, riding home through the desert darkness, grateful for another day on the road and another chance to do right by a stranger. Check if you are already subscribed to this channel. Stories like this remind us that real heroes do not wear capes or seek rewards. They ride highways looking for chances to help. Subscribe now so you never miss another story of courage and compassion. 3 weeks passed, and Marcus had nearly forgotten about Eleanor and her broken Mercedes. Life had a way of moving forward, each day filling with its own small concerns and responsibilities. He worked part-time at a veterans center in Henderson, helping other former servicemen navigate the often confusing world of benefits and support services. He rode with the Iron Guardians on their weekly runs. He had dinner with Emma every Sunday, watching her grow more confident in her new teaching job. It was on a Tuesday afternoon, unremarkable in every way, that the envelope arrived. Marcus was sitting on his front porch, nursing a cup of coffee and watching the neighborhood kids ride their bikes down the street, when a sleek black car pulled up to his house. It was not a car that belonged in this neighborhood, too expensive, too polished, and Marcus felt his instincts prickle as a man in a dark suit emerged from the driver's seat. The man walked up the path to Marcus's porch with the confident stride of someone accustomed to authority. He was young, probably early 30s, with the kind of clean-cut appearance that spoke of corporate money. "Mr. Marcus Cole?" the man asked. "Depends on who is asking." The man reached into his jacket and Marcus tensed. But instead of a weapon, he produced a cream-colored envelope. "I have been asked to deliver this to you personally." He held out the envelope. Marcus did not take it. "Who sent you?" "I am not at liberty to say, but I can tell you that my employer asked me to wait while you read it. She would like a response. She." Marcus thought of Eleanor, the mysterious woman on the highway. Something told him this was connected. He took the envelope. It was heavy, expensive paper, the kind used for wedding invitations or legal documents. His name was written on the front in elegant script. He opened it carefully and pulled out a single sheet of paper. "Dear Mr. Cole, I hope this letter finds you well. We met briefly on Highway 93 several weeks ago, under circumstances that were less than ideal. You stopped to help me when you had no reason to do so, and you refused any compensation for your kindness. At the time, I did not tell you who I was. I had my reasons, which I hope to explain in person. My name is Eleanor Whitfield. You may recognize the name from Whitfield Industries, one of the largest philanthropic organizations in the country. I am the founder and chairwoman. For the past 40 years, I have dedicated my life and my fortune to helping others, particularly veterans and their families. What I witnessed on that highway was something I rarely see in my world: genuine kindness, offered without expectation of reward. You treated me with dignity and respect at a moment when I was vulnerable, never once asking who I was or what I could offer you. In my experience, such integrity is rare. I would very much like to meet with you again, properly this time. Not to offer you money, as I understand that would offend you, but to discuss something that I believe could change many lives for the better. Your life and the lives of countless veterans who need the kind of help that only someone like you can provide. If you are willing, my assistant will bring you to my home in Las Vegas this Saturday. There will be no obligation, no pressure. Just a conversation between two people who share a belief in doing right by others. I hope you will say yes. With sincere respect, Eleanor Whitfield Marcus read the letter twice. Then he looked up at the young man in the suit, who was waiting patiently on his walkway. "Whitfield Industries," Marcus said. "That is the foundation that built the Veterans Housing Project in Phoenix." "Yes, sir, among many other initiatives. And she wants to meet with me?" "Yes, sir. She asked me to emphasize that there is no obligation. If you prefer to decline, she will understand completely." Marcus thought about the woman on the highway, the expensive clothes, the measured speech, the way Dusty had looked at her with something like recognition. It all made sense now. Eleanor Whitfield was one of the wealthiest women in America. Her foundation had donated billions to causes ranging from medical research to education to veteran support. Her face had graced magazine covers and news programs. She was a legend in philanthropic circles, known for her hands-on approach and her insistence on meeting the people her foundation helped. and Marcus had given her a ride on his motorcycle, called her ma'am, and told her to hold on tight. He surprised himself by laughing. The young man in the suit looked uncertain, as if unsure how to interpret this reaction. "Tell Miss Whitfield," Marcus said, "that I would be honored to meet with her. Saturday works fine." "Very good, sir. I will pick you up at 9 in the morning, if that is acceptable." After the assistant left, Marcus sat on his porch for a long time, the letter still in his hand. He thought about the strange paths life could take, the unexpected moments that turned out to be turning points. He thought about all the times he had stopped to help strangers on the road, never expecting anything in return, and he wondered what Eleanor Whitfield could possibly want from a man like him. Saturday arrived with the kind of bright, clear weather that Nevada specialized in. Marcus dressed in his best clothes, which meant clean jeans and a button-down shirt rather than his usual worn denim and leather. Emma had helped him pick out the shirt, laughing at his discomfort with anything more formal than work clothes. "Dad," she had said, "you are meeting one of the richest women in America. You could at least wear something without motorcycle grease on it." The black car arrived precisely at 9. The drive to Las Vegas took about an hour, and Marcus spent most of it staring out the window, watching the desert give way to the sprawling excess of the city. They bypassed the Strip entirely, heading instead into the hills west of town, where the houses grew larger and more isolated. Eleanor Whitfield's home was not what Marcus had expected. He had imagined something ostentatious, a mansion designed to display wealth. Instead, the car pulled up to a sprawling single-story residence that seemed to blend into the desert landscape. It was beautiful, certainly, but in a subtle way, more about harmony with the environment than dominance over it. Eleanor herself met him at the door. She looked different than she had on the highway, more polished, more at ease in her element. But her eyes were the same, sharp and assessing, taking his measure as she had done weeks ago on that blistering roadside. "Marcus," she said, extending her hand. "Thank you for coming. I was not certain you would." "I am not sure why I did," he admitted. "Curiosity, maybe." She smiled. "Curiosity is underrated. Please, come in." The interior of the house was as understated as the exterior. Clean lines, natural materials, artwork that suggested taste rather than expense. She led him to a sitting room with large windows overlooking a garden and gestured for him to take a seat. "I owe you an explanation," Eleanor said, settling into a chair across from him, "for why I did not tell you who I was on the highway." "You do not owe me anything, ma'am." "Eleanor, please." "And I disagree." She paused, gathering her thoughts. "I was on that highway because I had just come from a meeting in Phoenix. A disappointing one. I had been trying to partner with an organization to expand our veteran housing initiative, but it became clear that they were more interested in my money than in actually helping people. That must be frustrating." "It is." She looked at him directly. "When you have resources like mine, everyone wants something. Everyone has an angle. After a while, you start to forget what genuine kindness looks like. You start to assume that every friendly face is hiding an agenda. So when I stopped to help you, I was suspicious. I admit it. I thought perhaps you recognized me, that you were staging some elaborate scheme to get close to me. It has happened before." Marcus shook his head. "Ma'am, Eleanor, I did not know who you were until I got your letter. I just saw someone stranded on the road who needed help. That is all. I know that now. That is why you are here." She stood and walked to the window, looking out at the garden. "After you left, I asked Dusty about you. He told me about the Iron Guardians, about the work you do with veterans, about your reputation in the community. And I realized that I had encountered something I had almost stopped believing existed. A genuinely good person who helped others simply because it was right." Marcus shifted uncomfortably. "I am not special. There are good people everywhere. Perhaps. But I have been looking for someone specific. Someone to help me with a project I have been developing for years, and I believe that person might be you." She turned back to face him, and there was an intensity in her expression that made Marcus sit up straighter. "Tell me, Marcus. If you could help veterans in any way you wanted, with unlimited resources and complete freedom to act, what would you do? The question caught him off guard. He thought about all the men and women he had known over the years, the ones who had come home broken in visible and invisible ways. He thought about the bureaucratic nightmares, the inadequate support systems, the way society seemed to forget about its warriors once the wars were over. I would create a place, he said slowly. Not just housing, though that is important. A community. Somewhere veterans could come to heal, to find purpose again. With mental health support, job training, a sense of brotherhood. A place where they could learn to live again, not just survive. Eleanor nodded as if he had confirmed something she already suspected. That is exactly what I want to build. And I want you to help me build it. The conversation continued for hours. Eleanor explained her vision. A comprehensive veteran support center, unlike anything that currently existed. It would combine housing, medical care, mental health services, and job training in a single campus. But more than that, it would create a community, a brotherhood where veterans could support each other through the difficult transition back to civilian life. She had the money. She had the connections. She had spent years developing the plans. What she lacked was someone who could make it real, someone who understood veterans not as a category, but as individuals, someone who had earned the trust of the community through decades of service and integrity. I do not want a figurehead, she told him. I want a partner. Someone who will tell me when I am wrong, who will fight for what these men and women truly need rather than what looks good in a press release. Someone who understands that healing is not a transaction. Marcus listened, asked questions, pushed back on some ideas, and contributed others. By the time the sun began to set, they had sketched out the broad outlines of what would become the Whitfield Cole Veterans Center. Why me? He asked finally. You must know dozens of people better qualified for this. People with degrees and experience in nonprofit management. I know many people with impressive credentials, Eleanor agreed. But credentials do not build trust. You have something that cannot be learned in any classroom. You are one of them. You speak their language. You have lived their struggles. When you walk into a room full of veterans, they see a brother, not an outsider trying to help. Marcus sat with those words for a long moment. The weight of what she was offering settled onto his shoulders, not as a burden, but as a purpose. For years, he had done what he could within his limited means, helping one veteran at a time, one crisis at a time. Now Eleanor was offering him the chance to do something transformative. I need to think about this, he said finally. Of course. Take all the time you need. She stood and walked him to the door. But Marcus, whatever you decide, I want you to know that what you did on that highway mattered. Not because of who I turned out to be, but because of who you are. The world needs more people like you. On the drive home, Marcus watched the desert pass by his window and thought about the strange turns life could take. A broken coolant reservoir, a stranded woman, a moment of simple kindness. And now, the possibility of something he had never dared to imagine. He thought about his daughter Emma, about the pride in her eyes when she talked about his work with veterans. He thought about his brothers in the Iron Guardians, about the men they had lost and the men they had saved. He thought about the young soldiers coming home from wars that most Americans had already forgotten, facing battles that no one could see. By the time the car pulled up to his house, Marcus Cole had made his decision. The next 18 months were the most challenging and rewarding of Marcus's life. The Whitfield Cole Veterans Center began as blueprints and dreams, but slowly, painstakingly, it became real. Eleanor proved to be everything she had promised. A true partner who valued his input, respected his expertise, and never once tried to turn him into a figurehead. They chose a location outside Henderson, a 100-acre property that had once been a ranch. The land was beautiful, ringed by mountains, with enough space for housing, medical facilities, and the kind of open country that helped wounded souls breathe again. Marcus spent countless hours walking that property, imagining what it would become, planning every detail with the care he had once devoted to military operations. The Iron Guardians became integral to the project. Chains, Dusty, and dozens of other brothers volunteered their time and skills, helping with construction, planning events, and spreading the word through their networks. The veteran community rallied around the project in ways that surprised even Marcus. Former soldiers from every branch and every era came forward to offer support, expertise, and most importantly, hope. Emma watched her father transform during those months. The quiet sadness that had always lingered behind his eyes began to fade, replaced by a sense of purpose she had not seen since her mother passed away 5 years earlier. She joined the project herself, using her teaching skills to develop educational programs for veterans transitioning to civilian careers. Eleanor and Marcus developed a friendship that transcended their professional partnership. She told him about her late husband, a Vietnam veteran who had struggled with the invisible wounds of war until his death from cancer a decade earlier. Her philanthropy, she admitted, had begun as a way to honor his memory, to help others who faced the battles he had faced alone. "I failed him," she told Marcus one evening as they reviewed plans in her study. "I did not understand what he was going through. I did not know how to help. After he died, I swore I would spend the rest of my life making sure no other veteran felt as alone as he did." "You did not fail him," Marcus said gently. "You loved him. Sometimes that is all we can do." Eleanor smiled sadly. "Perhaps. But now I can do more. We can do more." The center opened on a crisp November morning, exactly 2 years after Marcus had stopped to help a stranded woman on Highway 93. The ceremony was modest by Eleanor's standards, but profound for everyone present. Veterans filled the chairs arranged on the main lawn, their families beside them, their faces reflecting a mixture of hope and cautious optimism. Marcus stood at the podium, looking out at the crowd. He saw Chains in the front row, his leather vest adorned with the Iron Guardian's insignia. He saw Emma, tears already forming in her eyes. He saw Eleanor, elegant as always, watching him with quiet pride. And he saw dozens of faces he did not recognize, veterans who had traveled from across the country to witness the birth of something new. 2 years ago, Marcus began, his voice carrying across the silent gathering, I stopped to help a woman whose car had broken down on a desert highway. I did not know who she was. I did not expect anything in return. I just did what any decent person should do. I helped someone who needed help. He paused, gathering his thoughts. That is the foundation this center is built on. Not money, although we are grateful for every dollar that made this possible. Not buildings, although these facilities will serve thousands of veterans for generations to come. This center is built on a simple belief, that we take care of our own, that when someone is struggling, we do not look away. We do not wait for someone else to step up. We act. He looked at Eleanor and nodded slightly. Mrs. Whitfield and I come from different worlds. She grew up with privilege I could never imagine. I grew up with nothing but determination and the values my parents taught me. But we share something that matters more than money or background. We believe that every veteran deserves dignity, support, and a chance to thrive. His voice grew stronger, more passionate. The men and women in this audience have given everything for their country. They have sacrificed their youth, their health, their peace of mind. Some have lost brothers and sisters in arms. Some carry wounds that no one else can see. And too often, when they come home, they find that the country they served has forgotten them. He shook his head slowly. Not here, not anymore. This center will be a place of healing, of brotherhood, of new beginnings. Here, no veteran will ever feel alone. Here, we will learn from each other, support each other, and rebuild our lives together. Because that is what warriors do. We do not give up. We adapt. We overcome. And we never, ever leave a fallen comrade behind. The applause that followed was not the polite acknowledgement of a formal ceremony. It was something deeper, more primal, the sound of people recognizing a truth they had always known but rarely heard spoken aloud. Veterans rose to their feet, some with tears streaming down their faces, others with expressions of fierce determination. If this story is touching your heart, take a moment to leave a comment saying, "No one gets left behind." Let us show the world that this community believes in taking care of our own. Your comment matters more than you know. After the ceremony, Marcus walked through the new facilities with Chains at his side. The buildings were state-of-the-art, designed with input from veterans, therapists, and medical professionals. But more than that, they felt like home. Comfortable furniture, warm colors, photographs of service members from every era covering the walls. "You did good, brother," Chains said, clapping Marcus on the shoulder. "Real good." "We did good," Marcus corrected. "All of us." They stopped in front of a large common room where a group of veterans had already gathered, sharing coffee and conversation. Through the window, Marcus could see the mountains in the distance, purple in the afternoon light. "You know what the best part is?" Chains asked. "What?" "This is just the beginning." Chains grinned. "Eleanor told me she is already planning expansions, more centers in other states, a national network of support." Marcus nodded slowly. The thought should have been overwhelming, but instead it felt right. Like everything that had come before, all the years of service and struggle and small acts of kindness had been leading to this moment. "Then we better get to work," he said. The months that followed proved Chains right. The Whitfield Cole Veteran Center quickly became a model for veteran support across the country. The combination of housing, medical care, mental health services, and community proved transformative. Veterans who had been struggling for years found new purpose, new connections, and new hope. Marcus threw himself into the work with everything he had. He was there every day, meeting with new arrivals, coordinating programs, and solving problems large and small. He learned names and stories, celebrated victories, and mourned the losses that inevitably came. Some battles, even with all the resources in the world, could not be won. But far more often, he witnessed the kind of healing that had once seemed impossible. One evening, about 6 months after the opening, Marcus was walking through the grounds when he encountered a young man sitting alone on a bench. The man was in his late 20s with the haunted eyes and rigid posture that Marcus recognized all too well. "Mind if I sit?" Marcus asked. The young man shrugged without looking up. "Free country." Marcus sat beside him, saying nothing, letting the silence stretch. He had learned long ago that sometimes presence was more valuable than words. After a few minutes, the young man spoke. "They told me you are the one who built this place, helped build it. I had a lot of assistance." The young man finally looked at him. His eyes were red, his jaw tight with suppressed emotion. "I have been here for 2 weeks," he said. "First place that has not made me feel like a number on a spreadsheet." "What is your name, son?" "Tyler." "Tyler Reeves. 2 tours in the mountains. Came back in one piece on the outside. Not so much on the inside." Marcus nodded. "I know how that feels." Tyler let out a bitter laugh. "Respectfully, sir, you do not. You built this whole place. You have got your life together. You do not know what it is like to wake up every night screaming, to see your friends die every time you close your eyes, to feel like you will never be normal again." Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then he rolled up his sleeve, revealing a jagged scar that ran from his wrist to his elbow. 2004, he said quietly. Roadside device took out our Humvee. I was the only survivor. 3 of my closest friends died that day. For years afterward, I could not sleep, could not hold a job, could not look at myself in the mirror without wanting to destroy what I saw. Tyler stared at the scar, then at Marcus's face. "I spent 5 years in a very dark place," Marcus continued. "There were nights when I did not think I would make it to morning, but I had brothers who refused to give up on me. They dragged me to meetings, made me talk when I wanted to be silent, stayed with me through the worst of it. They saved my life." He looked at Tyler directly. "That is why I helped build this place. Not because I have it all figured out, but because I know what it is like to be where you are. And I know that with the right support, you can come out the other side. It will not be easy. It will not be quick. But it is possible." Tyler's eyes had filled with tears. He wiped them away roughly, embarrassed by the display of emotion. "How?" he asked. "How did you do it?" "1 day at a time. 1 hour at a time when that was all I could manage. And I let people help me. That was the hardest part, accepting that I could not do it alone. But it was also the most important. They sat together as the sun set, two veterans sharing the weight of experiences that civilians could never fully understand. By the time darkness fell, something had shifted in Tyler. The rigid despair in his shoulders had softened, replaced by something fragile but real. Hope. Over the following year, Marcus watched Tyler transform. The young man threw himself into the center's programs with fierce determination. He started attending group therapy, then individual counseling. He trained as a peer counselor, using his own experiences to help other veterans who arrived in the same dark place he had been. And slowly, the light returned to his eyes. On the one-year anniversary of their conversation on the bench, Tyler sought Marcus out in his office. "I wanted to thank you," Tyler said, "for that night, for everything." "You did the hard work," Marcus replied. "I just pointed you in the right direction." Tyler shook his head. "It was more than that. You showed me that recovery was possible, that someone who had been through what I had been through could come out the other side and still make a difference." He paused, visibly emotional. "I have a job interview next week. Counselor at a veterans center in Phoenix. They want me to help them build something like what you have here." Marcus felt a surge of pride so intense it threatened to overwhelm him. He stood and extended his hand, but Tyler bypassed it and pulled him into a hug. "Thank you," Tyler said again, his voice thick with emotion. "Thank you for not giving up on me." Marcus held the young man tightly, remembering his own journey from darkness to light, all the brothers who had refused to let him fall. "We take care of our own," he said. "That is what we do." 2 years after the center opened, Eleanor Whitfield fell ill. The diagnosis came suddenly, a rare form of cancer that had already spread beyond the reach of treatment. She received the news with the same composure she had shown on that desert highway, accepting the reality without despair. Marcus visited her often during those final months. Her home, which had once intimidated him, became as familiar as his own. They would sit in her garden, watching the desert sunset paint the mountains in shades of gold and purple, talking about everything and nothing. "I have no regrets," Eleanor told him one evening. "I lived a good life. I did what I set out to do." "You did more than that," Marcus said. "You changed thousands of lives." "We changed thousands of lives," she corrected with a slight smile. "I just wrote the checks. You did the real work." They were silent for a moment, watching a hawk circle overhead. "I have made arrangements," Eleanor said quietly. "The foundation will continue after I am gone. The center will be fully funded for at least 20 years. And Marcus, I have left you something in my will." He started to protest, but she held up her hand. "Not money. I know you better than that." She smiled. "I have left you a letter. Instructions, really, for when you feel lost or overwhelmed, for when you wonder if what you are doing matters." "It matters," Marcus said firmly. "Every single day it matters. I know. But there will be days when you forget, when the weight of it all seems too heavy to bear. On those days, read the letter. Remember why you started. Remember that one act of kindness on a desert highway led to all of this." Eleanor Whitfield passed away on a quiet morning in March, surrounded by family and friends. Her funeral was attended by hundreds of people whose lives she had touched: veterans, educators, medical researchers, and ordinary citizens who had benefited from her generosity. Marcus delivered one of the eulogies. He told the story of their meeting on Highway 93, of the lesson Eleanor had taught him about the ripple effects of kindness. He spoke about her vision, her integrity, and her unwavering commitment to helping others. And he made a promise to her memory and to everyone listening that her legacy would continue. The letter Eleanor had mentioned was delivered to him after the service. Marcus waited until he was alone to open it, sitting in the same spot on her garden bench where they had shared so many conversations. "Dear Marcus," the letter began, "if you are reading this, I have moved on to whatever comes next. Do not mourn me too long. I lived fully and left nothing unsaid. I want to tell you something I never had the courage to say in person, You saved my life that day on the highway. Not physically, although the heat might have done me in if you had not stopped. You saved something more important. You restored my faith in humanity. Before we met, I had grown cynical. Decades of philanthropy had shown me the best and worst of human nature, and I had begun to suspect that the worst was winning. I had started to believe that true goodness, kindness without agenda, had become extinct. Then you appeared. A stranger in leather and tattoos, offering help to someone who had done nothing to earn it. You refused my money. You treated me with dignity. You asked nothing in return. In that moment, you reminded me why I started this work in the first place. You showed me that the goodness I thought had vanished was still alive, waiting to be recognized. Everything that came after, the center, the programs, all of it, began with that moment. You were the catalyst, Marcus. Your kindness set everything in motion. On the days when the work feels overwhelming, remember this. Every veteran you help is a ripple from that moment on the highway. Every life transformed is proof that small acts of kindness can change the world. You are not just a good man, Marcus Cole. You are the kind of man who makes goodness possible in others. Never forget that. With eternal gratitude and respect, Eleanor Marcus read the letter 3 times, tears streaming down his face. Then he folded it carefully and placed it in his pocket, close to his heart, where it would remain for the rest of his life. 5 years after the center opened, Marcus stood in the main hall of the facility, looking at the photographs that covered the walls. Thousands of faces looked back at him, veterans who had found healing, families reunited, lives rebuilt. Each photograph represented a story, a journey from darkness to light. Emma appeared beside him, her arm slipping through his. "The anniversary celebration is about to start," she said. "Everyone is waiting for you." Marcus nodded but did not move immediately. He was looking at a photograph near the bottom of the display, one that had been added recently. It showed Tyler Reeves standing in front of his own Veterans Center in Phoenix, surrounded by the men and women he now helped. The inscription beneath read, "Every light kindles another." He thought about Eleanor, about the Iron Guardians, about all the unexpected connections that had led him here. He thought about that scorching day on Highway 93, when he had simply done what any decent person should do. He thought about the ripples spreading outward, touching lives he would never know. The Whitfield Cole Veterans Center had grown beyond anything Marcus had imagined. 3 more facilities had opened across the country, with plans for 5 more in the coming years. A national network of peer support had formed, connecting thousands of veterans through shared experiences and mutual aid. The Iron Guardians had become integral partners in the mission, their chapters across the nation establishing their own outreach programs. But more than the numbers, more than the buildings and programs, Marcus treasured the individual transformations he had witnessed. Veterans who had arrived broken, convinced their lives were over, leaving months later with jobs, families, and renewed purpose. Young men and women who had seen the worst of humanity rediscovering their faith in the best. Families healing wounds that had seemed permanent. "Dad?" Emma's voice pulled him back to the present. "They are waiting." Marcus smiled and turned away from the photographs. "Let them wait another minute. I want to show you something." He led her outside, to a small garden that had been planted near the entrance of the center. In the middle of the garden stood a bronze statue, a biker extending his hand to help someone stand. The plaque at its base read simply, "Sometimes the smallest act of kindness can change everything." Eleanor wanted this, Marcus said. She designed it herself before she passed. She said it would remind everyone who came here that help can come from unexpected places, and that no one is beyond redemption. Emma squeezed his arm. She was an amazing woman. She was. And I never would have met her if I had not stopped on that highway. Marcus shook his head slowly. It is strange how life works. One decision, one moment of choosing to do the right thing, and everything changes. That is not strange, Dad. Emma looked at him with eyes full of love and pride. That is you. That is who you have always been. The man who stops to help, who refuses to look away, who believes in people even when they have stopped believing in themselves. Marcus felt his throat tighten with emotion. He pulled his daughter into a hug, holding her close as the desert wind whispered around them. "I am proud of you," Emma said against his chest. "Mom would be proud of you too." They stood there for a long moment, father and daughter, surrounded by the evidence of what kindness could build. Then Marcus straightened, wiped his eyes, and smiled. "Come on," he said. "We have a celebration to attend, and I have a speech to give." The anniversary celebration was the largest the center had ever hosted. Veterans and their families filled the main lawn, joined by staff, volunteers, and supporters from across the country. The Iron Guardians had turned out in force, their motorcycles gleaming in the afternoon sun, their presence a reminder of the brotherhood that had made all of this possible. Marcus took the stage to thunderous applause. He looked out at the crowd, these beautiful, broken, resilient people who had trusted him with their healing, and felt a wave of gratitude so powerful it nearly took his breath away. "5 years ago," he began, "I stood on this stage and talked about the foundation this center was built on. I talked about taking care of our own, about refusing to look away when someone needs help. Today, I want to talk about something different. I want to talk about the power of connection." He paused, gathering his thoughts. Every person in this crowd is connected. Maybe you do not know it yet, but you are. The veteran sitting next to you might have served with someone who served with your brother. The volunteer pouring coffee might have been helped by someone you helped years ago. We are all links in a chain that stretches back generations and forward into a future we cannot imagine. He thought about Eleanor, about Tyler, about all the lives that had intersected with his own. "I met a woman once, on a desert highway. Her car had broken down. I stopped to help her because that is what decent people do. I did not know who she was. I did not expect anything in return. It was just one small act of kindness, the kind that happens every day, all over the world, without recognition or reward." His voice grew stronger. That one small act led to this. He gestured at the center, at the crowd, at everything they had built together. Not because of who she turned out to be, but because kindness has a way of multiplying. It spreads from person to person, growing stronger with each connection. One act of kindness inspires another, which inspires another, until what started as a single moment becomes a movement. He looked at the Iron Guardians, at Emma, at the veterans who had become his family. Every one of you has that power. Every one of you can be the link in someone else's chain. It does not matter if you are rich or poor, famous or unknown. What matters is what you do in the moments when no one is watching. The choices you make when you have nothing to gain. He leaned into the microphone, his voice carrying across the silent crowd. "So I challenge you. Tomorrow, next week, whenever the opportunity arises, stop for the person whose car has broken down. Listen to the veteran who seems lost. Extend your hand to someone who has fallen. You never know what that small act might lead to. You never know whose life you might change." The applause that followed was not just appreciation, it was commitment, a collective promise to carry forward the legacy that Marcus and Eleanor had built. As the sun began to set, painting the desert sky in brilliant oranges and purples, Marcus stepped away from the celebration. He walked to the garden with Eleanor's statue, as he did every evening, and stood in the fading light. "Thank you," he said quietly, speaking to Eleanor, to his fallen comrades, to everyone who had helped him become the man he was. "Thank you for believing in me. Thank you for showing me what is possible." The wind stirred the desert plants around him, carrying the distant sound of laughter and music from the celebration. Marcus closed his eyes and breathed deeply, feeling the peace that had eluded him for so many years. He thought about the road that had brought him here, the military service, the trauma, the dark years, the gradual healing, the unexpected encounter on Highway 93. Each step had led to the next. Each struggle had prepared him for greater purpose. He had never imagined that his life would lead to this, that a broken man could help build something that would heal so many others. But that was the nature of redemption. It did not come all at once. It came in small moments, in choices made in the dark, in hands extended and help accepted. It came in the willingness to keep going even when hope seemed lost. Marcus opened his eyes and looked at the mountains, purple now in the twilight. Somewhere out there, on some lonely highway, someone was making a choice: to stop or keep driving, to help or look away, to be a link in the chain or to break it. He hoped they would choose well. He hoped they would remember that small acts of kindness could change the world. He hoped they would understand that redemption was always possible, no matter how far they had fallen. Because if a broken veteran and a stranded billionaire could build something like this, anything was possible. Marcus walked back to the celebration, where his family was waiting. Emma spotted him and waved, her smile bright in the evening light. Chains raised a cup in salute, surrounded by their brothers from the Iron Guardians. The veterans and their families had gathered around a large fire pit, sharing stories and laughter. Marcus joined them, taking his place in the circle, feeling the warmth of the fire and the deeper warmth of belonging. This was what Eleanor had envisioned. This was what they had built together. Not just a center for healing, but a community of warriors who refused to give up on each other. As the stars emerged overhead, Marcus thought about all the veterans who would come through these gates in the years ahead. He thought about the journeys they would take, the healing they would find, the lives they would rebuild. And he knew with absolute certainty that Eleanor's legacy would endure, because every veteran who found hope here would carry that hope forward. Every life transformed would transform others. The ripples would spread outward, touching lives they would never know, changing the world in ways they could never imagine. It had all started with a simple decision to stop and help a stranger, and it would never stop. If you watched until the end, it is because this story touched your heart. Leave a comment saying, "I watched until the end." This helps me know who truly connects with these stories of courage and compassion. Your presence here matters more than you know. Before you go, take a moment to hit that like button if this story moved you. Share it with someone who needs to hear that kindness can change the world. And if you are not yet subscribed, join our community of people who believe in the power of small acts and unexpected heroes. The biker helped a luxury driver for free. He did not know who she was. He did not expect anything in return. And that single moment of kindness created something that will help veterans for generations to come. That is the power we all carry. The power to be the link in someone else's chain. The power to change a life with a simple choice. Use it wisely. Until next time, remember, honor does not retire, brotherhood never ends, and sometimes the smallest act of kindness can change everything.